Gayle Saunders here with Mal Davis talking the prospect. Another player that we're going to cross off the board. LSU wide receiver Justin Jefferson. I mean, me saying that again might trigger some people on the timeline. Some people feel a certain way about Justin Jefferson. And then there's other people on this side that feel a certain way about Justin Jefferson. I'm kind of like right there in the middle. It took a little soul searching for me to be on board with Justin Jefferson, maybe the potential guy at number 21. Right. But obviously, his stock has risen. I think overall, he's been a productive, reliable target for Joe Burrow. Yeah. You can't talk about Joe Burrow without talking about Justin Jefferson. Right. The level of cohesiveness of their relationship showed an understanding of his own quarterback and his ability to work in space, in him working in zones, finding like the open windows, knowing where his quarterback needed him to be, whether coming back to the football. That just shows to me what kind of relationship him and his quarterback had. I mean, you look at his production from his sophomore year, 54 catches, 875 yards, led the team in receiving, to his junior year where he's, 111 catches, 1,540 yards, 18 touchdowns. Initial feelings about, I'm just going to warn the viewers out there, Mal has some serious comps for my man.
Hey, man.
How are you feeling about Justin Jefferson?
So I'm in that camp that loves Justin Jefferson at 21. I have no concerns about his ability to produce in the NFL. We'll get into the comp later. But for me, he's somebody that definitely can cut it in the NFL. I think some of the questions people had were around his speed, him going out and running a 4.43 40 in a 40-yard dash, alleviated some of that stuff. A lot of people talking about, he can't kick outside or he's not an outside receiver. But we were saying earlier before we logged on is that as a sophomore, played a ton outside. As a junior, didn't really have to with Jamar Chase going absolutely bananas. And then Terrace Marshall really able to fill in at the other outside receiver position. So I don't understand why you would want to force him into a position that isn't potentially his best or was best for the offense. I think when you look at LSU's offense, they did an exceptional job of taking advantage of the weak spots in the opposing team's defense. And a ton of those weak spots were Justin Jefferson working against a slot cornerback or a linebacker in space. He's somebody for me, very solid route runner. Again, we'll get into the comp later. Can't wait for people to come at me, but it's okay. I'm here for it all. I'm here for the smoke. Very solid route runner, hands catcher, something for me from wide receivers. Two things I look for. What does the route tree look like? And are they hands catchers or body catchers? Because body catchers don't last very long. And if you don't have a route tree, you can't contribute very early. And so for me, he's somebody that you see running pivot routes, running inside, running, quick outs, running deep outs, running quick slants, able to run, flag routes, comebacks, hitches, does everything. And so you can see it on screen. Again, solid game speed. He's not going to break away from you or like be somebody that'll just blow you apart like a Jalen Reagor will or a Ruggs will. And then able to get in and out of breaks smoothly. So he's somebody that you see, again, get in and out of breaks very quickly. Is able to gear up and gear down to fool defenders and works wonderfully in space. And one last thing I just want to kind of throw out there is that I love him in the scramble drill. It's one thing to be able to run expert routes. It's another thing to be able to work simultaneously with your quarterback to get open. Time and time again, you see Joe Burrow having to extend a play. When we have somebody like Carson Wentz who could dance around in the pocket, isn't always looking to run, but is looking to find that open receiver. Jefferson does an excellent job of working his way open, working his way free from coverage, and finding those gaps in the defense, even, against zone, able to sit down and just make the catch, make the tough catch in traffic. I love that about his skill set for sure.
There's a player that he's been compared to. It's funny, like, he set the single season school record with 111 receptions in 2019. It's the third most in a season in the SEC history. It's only behind Amari Cooper and
Baller.
a fellow by the name of Jordan Matthews, who Eagle fans know a lot about. And I've heard this whole comparison to Jordan Matthews. I think whether he was productive from the slot, maybe that's about where I there's a part of his game where he's I see a crafty technician, a guy who knows how to tell stories with his routes,
Right.
And gain separation. We'll talk about 40 times day and night. I mean, he put up a decent 40 time where it just shows you he has that kind of speed. He's more quick than he is explosive, but his ability to make plays, contort his body, track the ball over his head, be a willing blocker at the next level. I think he could build onto his frame and put more muscle on that frame. But I feel like he's a guy who, he's a guy that you can find in the soft parts of the zone, just sitting there chilling,
hanging out,
ready to make the catch and ready to be on the same page as Carson Wentz, because we're thinking about the Eagles' offense as we move forward. When you look at if there's outside production from Alshon Jeffrey or a Deshaun Jackson, you have Zach Ertz or Dallas Goedert working the seams. Like to say that it's a weakness to have a slot wide receiver who is on par, ripping up the seams and getting open. As a we don't need another slot. If you have that kind of production, whether it's Zach Ertz and another reliable target, Justin Jefferson, that's not a weakness. I think that's a strength. Having another guy who can dominate in the slot. The kind of production that he had in his last year showed me that him and his quarterback were on the same page. And some of the crazy highlight plays that you might see from him are just consistent production. We're talking about consistency at the end of the day. The consistent production you saw from him, where his quarterback was relying on him just to be there. My nickname I've had for Justin Jefferson this whole time is Steady Eddie.
Mr. Reliable.
You can rely on him to be where you need him to be, and as a quarterback, that's one thing you need from your wide receiver, to be on the same page and for him to be where you need him to be. And you could see plays from Aguilar where he was not where you needed him to be, and he was not reliable at the catch point. I think Justin Jefferson, after digging through a lot of his plays, he just started to really impress me. Just him as an overall football player and his consistency.
Yep, absolutely. And earlier I made a mistake when you said Jordan Matthews' name. I said a hands catcher. I meant to say body catcher. And that for me is one of the biggest differences, is that Jordan Matthews was not a hands catcher, showed a lot of drops on tape, even coming out of Vandy, and that all of us know that, he has some pretty inopportune drops as an Eagle. Nelson Aguilar, same thing. You don't see that with Justin Jefferson. And Justin Jefferson tore up the SEC this year, went against some really stellar competition, and, worked well in sync with Joe Burrows. Again, for me, aside from the fact that Jefferson is a really good route runner, he's somebody that can he's good at improvisation. And also really good in the red zone. You see this dude working open in the red zone through different formations, getting double teamed towards the end of the season, and produced, through his last 3 games of the season. So against Georgia, Oklahoma, and Clemson, he had a combined 30 catches for 448 yards and 5 touchdowns at a 14.8 yards per catch clip. It's nothing to sneeze at, right? Clemson has a corner that, some people are trying to say is a first-round caliber player. UGA always feels a really good defense, and Oklahoma didn't really have the outside players, but he was working in the slot and absolutely destroyed Oklahoma for 14 catches, 227 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I mean, come on now. And that's in the semis of the college football championship. So he's someone that I know for a fact can come in and contribute. I don't think that he's redundant with Goddard. or with Zach Ertz. And let's be real, Zach Ertz, even though he might get an extension here soon, is somebody that's getting up there in the years that he's been in the league. Still a really reliable contributor, but Goddard is as well. And I personally feel that at some point the Eagles, and this will be unpopular, I'm okay with being unpopular, but I feel like the Eagles are going to have to make a tough choice at tight end at some point. But at this point in the Eagles, where they are now from a depth chart standpoint, I don't know that you can rely on Deshaun Jackson but for so much longer. I don't know what'll happen with Alshon Jeffrey, but we need players that can catch the ball, and Justin Jefferson can catch the ball. 111 receptions, that's crazy. Those are outlandish numbers. And barely outshadowed by Jamar Chase this year, who, also had a really outstanding year and is just a reflection of what that offense was able to do at LSU. But, I've always been someone that was a really in Justin Jefferson's corner. Still think at 21 he'd be a great fit for us. It's on the Eagles to figure out how to use him correctly, right? Like, that's what you have offensive coordinators and a head coach that used to be an OC and used to be a quarterback. You have to design the plays to get these guys open. You have to put them in positions where they can make plays. But even if the play breaks down and Ertz has to scramble, I want a guy like Justin Jefferson running through the secondary because I have the utmost faith he'll find the spot to get open. He'll get open in the red zone. He's not a huge wide receiver, but he's big enough to make those plays. And time again, you know that you can rely on him.
Some of his backstory, you're talking about a guy who wasn't like heavily recruited.
Right.
He was a 3-star coming out of high school. Kind of got overshadowed by a couple of his teammates in high school. But I feel like, his brother had ties to LSU. His brother played quarterback at LSU, and I think you look at Justin Jefferson, like he came on late. He didn't. Yep. He didn't get any playing time earlier on in his career. He played in 6 games as a freshman and didn't put up any stats. He came back his sophomore year with 13 games played, and he started 12 games. And on his career, he's got 27 starts out of 34 games played. But I think he's the guy with a chip on his shoulder. He's a guy that
absolutely
wasn't expected to be where he is right now. You're talking about a guy who wasn't he wasn't the super high recruit coming out of college, but we're talking about Justin Jefferson being a potential first round pick. You know how hard that is to go from but I feel like he's learned from some of the best. LSU right now has been they've been producing some real talented wide receivers as of late.
Right.
In order to get the production out of him, you have to utilize him from where he's good at, and that's my only concern moving forward. You talked about he does have solid hands, 111 catches. He did have 8 drops on the year, but in terms of like the mass amount of production he had, he had a couple focus drops, but overall reliable player. Is there a favorite play from Justin Jefferson that really excites you about his game?
I love that play against Texas where Burrow was rolling out to the right, kind of launches it down the sideline. He shakes free of the defender and is able to make just a really tough catch in traffic. He's made so many catches that just made no sense at all. He's just somebody, again, that continues to just show that development. I think something that you hit on is really important. He has that work ethic clearly, right? Like, he developed himself into a first-round pick after being a 3-star coming out of high school. Someone that wasn't really looked at as being the upper echelon. And even coming into this season, nobody thought he was going to have 111 catches. Nobody really thought he would be, in the argument for one of the top 3 to 4 receivers in the draft this year, and somebody that could be potentially going at 21. And so he's somebody that is going to come in with that chip on his shoulder, like you mentioned, that much like we mentioned with Kenneth Murray Jr., one of those first one in, last one out kind of guys, and somebody that I feel like you can just rely on. And the Eagles need as many reliable offensive skill players as possible to continue to develop Carson Wentz throughout his prime. This is the time now that we need to maximize drafting well, bringing in people on rookie contracts to kind of keep our cap numbers down so we can focus on other places, re-signing some players, going out on free agency like how we did this year and getting like a Hargrave, re-signing somebody like a Darius Slay. Like those are the kind of moves that when you draft well and you don't potentially miss on like a JJ Arcega-Whiteside or somebody like that, but you bring in a Jefferson and we'll see what happens with JJ, right? Like there's a chance that he still develops and can kick outside. And so, when you have someone like Justin Jefferson who's shown that he can develop over time, who's shown that he has the ability in the middle to make tough catches and get hit constantly, and really just take the offense on his shoulders when necessary and also score in the red zone are all areas that the Eagles need right now. I understand why people are against potentially drafting him at 21. I would say go back to the tape. Go back and look at him as a sophomore in 2018 if you have an opportunity to see him play outside a little bit more. But even if you don't want to go back that far, look at him take advantage of some of these really strong defenses in the SEC and in the Big 12 later on in the season against some really good players that'll end up playing in the NFL themselves. I think Justin Jefferson brings more than enough to the table to warrant being drafted at 21. If the Eagles do end up with him, I'll be extremely excited. And may or may not be buying a Justin Jefferson jersey. We'll see what happens.
Oh, okay. Last words on Justin Jefferson. I just feel like as much as we would love a vertical threat, explosive threat on the outside, if it doesn't, if the board is not warranting a selection of a player with those kind of traits, my next need is a wide receiver who is productive, who is also. Yeah. I need wide receivers that can tell stories with their routes, man. Like if you can be deceptive and set defenders up and just be on par with your quarterback, and gain separation that way. To me, that's important. That's really important. And you're talking about a guy. Look at the relationship between Burrows and Justin Jefferson.
Absolutely.
Who on this Eagles roster does Carson Wentz have right now in terms of your thinking about Carson Wentz and having that guy to grow with?
Right.
I mean, if he had a guy that could grow and be successful with the way Burrows was with Jefferson, I mean, you can't ask for a player to be productive, to be growing with Carson Wentz for the next couple of years.
Absolutely.
To have a reliable, a reliable person to work the seams, to work the intermediate game, the short game. I could say that I came to terms with Justin Jefferson after watching more of his tape and being like, all right, I see where he can be successful. But any last words for Justin Jefferson?
Same thing, man. I mean, I really fell in love with him during the back half of this football season, but I think it's always important to not go by the live games that you watch and go back and watch the tape. Folks will really dig into the tape and you'll get a chance to see, like what you were saying, he tells tales and tells stories with his routes. Really good route runner. And so, we're talking about that comp. I wanted to hold it to the end. But for me, when I was watching him play, I saw Mike Thomas, man. And, he's not as big as Mike Thomas, but he's somebody, I'm shooting and I'm scoring, baby. And if y'all want the smoke, come at me. I'm on Twitter all day, holla at me. But, I see a guy that is going to just destroy the middle of a defense time and time again. Faster than Mike Thomas, doesn't have as big as hands, but also has longer arms. So Justin Jefferson has 33-inch arms, which is amazing, and a 37.5-inch vertical. So he's able to go up and high point those footballs, 126-inch broad jump, which is the same as Mike Thomas, so that lower body explosion. I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's blasphemy. All right, man. Hold on to it. We'll talk again in a couple years when he gets into the NFL. He's going crazy. And then, I just want folks to just give me my credit when it's due. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Thomas still plays with that chip on his shoulder like he was drafted late. But I also go, my last parting take is I see analysts out there that down a player like, oh, he can't play on the outside. Says who? Says you? Who who never ever played?
Not a single down.
You're telling me that he can't play on the outside because of, we just haven't seen it as much, or I'd leave that up to Justin Jefferson to prove those guys wrong. And but to say that he can't do it is like, come on, man. Like, I just think it's way too early. Like, obviously he was productive in the slot. But to say that that's all he can be at the next level is a little bit much for me. So I'll wait for Justin Jefferson to prove him wrong.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we did a good job doing Justin Jefferson. We tried to describe his game as best as possible. But Mal, tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at love4thegame MAL. So at love for the game Mal. If you disagree, I love positive disagreements. We could go back and forth. Just don't be disrespectful, man. That's all I ask. But if you think that Mike Thomas is a bad comp, holla at me. Let's talk about it.
And y'all can find me at Eagle Sessions on Twitter. That's where I usually, rest my head. But also subscribe. Also comment in the comment section. Tell us what you feel about Justin Jefferson. Is he the truth? Is he not the truth? Where do you stand as an Eagle fan? We'd like to know. But that's all for us, me and Mal. We will see you guys soon. Draft day is lurking around the corner. Fly, Eagles, fly.